before there were heroes, before there were quests, before names like Percy Jackson were whispered around campfires, there were monsters. Not just any monsters, but ancient ones, stitched into the fabric of Greek myth, as old as night and storm and sea itself. They slithered across mountains, lurked beneath the waves, soared over temples, and curled in shadows where gods feared to tread. But tonight, you won't have to run from them. Tonight, you'll listen. You'll walk gently through their stories, guided by quiet footsteps and moonlight. And one by one, they'll unfold not to scare you, but to remind you that even in a world of danger and darkness, there is wonder and warmth and rest. In the world of Percy Jackson, monsters are not just foes to be vanquished. They are echoes of ancient curses, forgotten choices, and fears we don't always understand. Some are beautiful, some are tragic. Some wear the shape of nightmares, but carry the soul of old stories trying to be remembered. As you settle in tonight, whether in a cozy bed, a quiet dorm room, or simply behind closed eyes, I invite you to drift alongside these tales. Let them move slowly, like the tide brushing against a demigod's memories. You'll meet the first monster Percy ever faced, horns glinting beneath a New York moon. The Minotaur charging across a highway bridge, not as myth, but as reality. And yet, that night didn't break him, it made him. You'll meet Medusa, eyes full of frozen grief, standing not in a cave, but a roadside shop of statues. You'll hear the hiss of hydras, the roar of lions with golden fur, the flap of wings that once darkened ancient skies. But in this version, none of them chase you. None of them roar too loud. They've slowed, quieted, just enough to let you understand them, just enough to let you rest. Because monsters in Greek myth and in Percy's world were never just about fear. They were tests, mirrors, sometimes even teachers. They appear when a hero doubts themselves, when a choice must be made, when something deep inside must rise to the surface. That's why Percy never ran forever. He faced them, and in doing so, he became something stronger, kinder, wiser, more human. You'll drift through oceans and caverns, across labyrinths and mountain peaks, through memories Percy never forgot, and maybe you won't either. But don't worry, there are no jump scares here, only slow-moving shadows made soft by time. And every monster has its place in the myth, its role in the dream. Even Typhon, the giant storm beneath the mountains. Even Echidna, the mother of monsters. Even the tricksters and deceivers, whose glowing eyes once stirred fear in Olympus. Tonight, they're just names and stories, parts of the great myth that built the world Percy walks in. The same world that's waiting now to help you fall asleep. Maybe you've heard these names in books. Maybe you've watched them rise in flames and vanish in wind. But tonight, you'll hear them differently, with a slow voice, with no rush, no need to fight. Just let them arrive. Stay a while, then drift away like dreams do. And as each tale settles in, you'll remember that even monsters sleep. Even monsters have endings. And even in the darkest parts of myth, there's a glow, a firelight, a truth. So close your eyes, child of Olympus, or perhaps child of stories. You've wandered long enough for one day. The gods are quiet now. The stars blink gently above Camp Half-Blood. The lake reflects the moon like polished silver. And down in the shadows of the woods, where a younger Percy once battled beast after beast, there is only wind now, and the soft breath of monsters sleeping. Let this be your story now. A night of monsters, not to fear, but to understand. Because in the end, even the fiercest myth was once just a whispered tale, and tonight, it's yours. The sea is wide, mysterious, and old. In the world of Percy Jackson, the sea is not just water, but memory. It is the place where ancient gods sleep and monsters stir beneath the tides. Tonight, we drift with you into these forgotten waters, not to fear, but to float, to understand, to remember. The ocean cradles stories that even Olympus dares not speak aloud. It cradles myths so ancient they have no names. And yet, if you listen closely, you can hear them, not in words, but in waves, in hushes and heartbeats, in the slow rhythm of dreams. It begins with a sound, a low rumble beneath the surface, the kind of sound that echoes in your ribs if you're standing by the shore. That's not thunder. That's something waking up, something old, something big. You see, not all monsters are made of fangs and fire. Some are made of silence, vastness, depth. In Greek mythology, monsters are never just enemies. They're tests. And in Percy's world, they are lessons wrapped in fear. Percy Jackson knows the sea well. He knows what it hides. The first time he truly felt its power was when the Chimera attacked him at the top of the arch, and the sea answered. But it was later, much later, when he met the true monsters of the deep. Creatures that predate even the gods. Creatures older than titans. Things that whisper in salt and shadow. Things that watch from the darkness just beyond the light of the surface. Take Scylla and Charybdis, two nightmares carved into the map of every Greek sailor. One devours ships with snapping heads, while the other swallows them whole with whirlpools. They don't chase you. They wait, patient, eternal. In the sea of monsters, Percy and Annabeth must pass between them, not to defeat, but to survive. And that is what these monsters teach. Not all victories are loud. Sometimes, surviving the sea is enough. Then there is Keto, mother of monsters, the sea goddess whose children include Echidna, the Chimera, and even Ladon, the dragon that guards the golden apples. Keto does not scream or rage. She waits in the coldest trenches, ancient and silent. Her presence is not seen, but felt. Every ripple, every cold breath of deep water is her lullaby. Her legacy is not one monster, but all of them. And in Percy Jackson's world, that legacy is alive and moving. Even the hippocampi, gentle as they seem, come from old myths. Part horse, part fish, and in Percy's world, they are loyal companions. But once, they were part of Poseidon's army. Not always tame, not always safe. The sea does not promise safety. It promises balance. Respect it, and it may carry you. Disrespect it, and you may vanish without a trace. Percy learns this not from textbooks, but from waves, from storms, from silence. Percy has seen the depths change. In the Titan's curse, he plunges into the deep to search for Artemis. Below the surface, light disappears. Sound becomes muffled. And then comes Bessie, the Ophiotaurus, a creature with the power to destroy Olympus with a single sacrifice. It is gentle, innocent. But even innocence can become monstrous if used by the wrong hands. That is the lesson of the sea. Power exists, but intent decides what makes a monster. And then, in the Heroes of Olympus, the sea grows darker. Percy faces the sea god Phorcys and his freak show of monsters, a hidden underwater circus of deformities and forgotten terrors. Not all monsters roar. Some weep, some hide, some are just waiting for the tides to turn. And through it all, Percy doesn't just fight them. He listens. He sees them. He wonders why they are the way they are. Gore, that's what makes him different. Percy doesn't fear the sea because he is the sea. Wild, loving, dangerous, deep. And the monsters that live within it, they're not just obstacles, they're reflections of what we bury, of what we survive, of what we might become if pushed deep enough. So as you fall asleep tonight, imagine that wide, silent sea. Imagine drifting beneath moonlight, past coral palaces and shadowed caves. You might glimpse a glowing eye. You might feel a ripple from something vast moving below. But do not fear. You are not alone. Percy is with you. The sea is watching. And the monsters? They are dreaming too. Let your breath slow with the waves now, in and out. The same rhythm Percy once felt on the back of a hippocampus as it carried him to safety. The same rhythm echoed in the cries of sirens, or the silence of the deep where even sound is swallowed. Some monsters call with beauty, others hide in plain sight, but all have stories, and stories do not bite, they whisper. You might dream tonight of the Nereids, the gentle sea nymphs who guide Percy when the world above fails him. Or perhaps you'll visit Triton, Poseidon's proud and difficult son, whose presence reminds Percy that even in the sea, not all family feels like home. In these underwater kingdoms, monsters and gods blur. Sometimes what's terrifying is just misunderstood. Sometimes it's something else entirely. Percy never runs from monsters, not because he wants to fight, but because he wants to know. And knowing takes courage. The kind of courage that lets you dive into the dark. The kind that lets you breathe where others drown. Maybe that's why Poseidon chose him. Not because Percy was fearless, but because he feared and still moved forward. Into the belly of sea beasts, into storms, into myth itself. And as he dives again and again through the battle of the labyrinth, the last Olympian, and beyond, Percy finds more than monsters. He finds truths. That even the worst creature may be chained to a past it didn't choose. That destruction often hides a cry for help. That even a monster's heart may break in silence. The sea holds so much, and tonight it holds you. Just float now. Let the story rock you gently. Let the monsters pass like drifting shadows, close enough to see, but far enough to keep dreaming. Because Percy didn't fight them, so you couldn't sleep. He fought them, so you could. While the ocean hides many ancient horrors beneath its waves, the land is no safer. For where the sea has serpents, the earth has giants. Titans may be the oldest of beings, but it is their monstrous descendants who have left the deepest scars in mortal memory. In the time of Percy Jackson, when Mount Olympus still stands invisible above the Empire State Building, and half-bloods train quietly in the woods of Camp Half-Blood, it's these Earthwalkers that rise again, reborn through myth, reawakened by prophecy. Imagine a clearing in the forest. The grass is still, but the birds have gone silent. That silence is the first sign. The second is the rumble, not like thunder, but like something dragging its body through roots and underbrush. Then it emerges. A beast with the body of a lion, the head of a goat rising from its back, and a serpent for a tail. The Chimera, its breath scorches the air. And for Percy, facing it on a flying archway in the sky, it is not just a monster from a textbook. It is death, real and snarling, and its fire nearly takes him. But it's not the only one. There's the Nemean lion, its golden fur impenetrable, immune to mortal blades. Percy does not fight it in a coliseum or a stadium, but in a Las Vegas casino where time moves differently. He defeats it by choking it from the inside cleverness, not just power. And the lion dissolves, leaving behind only the lesson that sometimes monsters wear beautiful coats. Then there are the Draceni, snake women soldiers who march in armor, slithering through battlefields with spears and hissed threats. They serve Kronos. They believe in his rise, and they are many. These are not lone wolves. They are part of a monstrous army. The forest is not silent for long, for in the distance, a thump, another, then another. Trees bend and birds scatter as the Cyclopes return. Not just Typhon, the gentle giant who calls Percy brother, but the war-born ones. Angry, roaring, hammer-wielding. They are not creatures of stories anymore. They are siege weapons. Yet even these are not the worst. The worst are those who crawl out of Tartarus itself. Not the dead, but the forgotten. Kelly, the Impalza beautiful at first glance, but with one leg made of bronze and the other pure flame. She dances like a maiden, and then she strikes. They don't just kill, they infiltrate, pose as cheerleaders, as friends, as mortals, as shadows. Then they pounce. One must never let their guard down. Monsters in Percy's world do not always roar. Some smile, some whisper, some wait, and all of them return. That is the truth Percy learns. They don't die. They reform, reborn from Tartarus, drawn back by the scent of demigod blood. So Camp Half-Blood doesn't just train for war, it trains for recurrence. Even if a hero wins today, tomorrow brings the same nightmare again. And that is perhaps the most terrifying part of all. That monsters are patient, eternal, that fear has a memory. Deep in the labyrinth, where time coils like a serpent, there are things even older than Kronos. Things with no names, just hunger. Even Percy cannot name them. He just runs. But others are legends in themselves. The Minotaur, his first true battle. A bull-headed man with brute strength and endless fury. He chases Percy's mother. He snaps trees like twigs. And when Percy drives a horn into his own flesh to win, it's a baptism in blood. A warning that from here on, nothing will ever be normal again. And then there's Antaeus, son of Gaia, a giant who cannot be beaten while touching the earth. Percy fights him in a sandpit where the rules are unfair, where strength alone isn't enough. He wins by lifting the monster off the ground. That's always the trick with monsters. Find the rule they follow and break it. For some, that rule is pride. For others, it's hunger. And for a few, it's the ancient connection to Mother Gaia. Because Gaia is not just the earth. She is mother to many monsters. And when she awakens fully, the world will tremble. Her children, the giants, are unlike anything before. Each one crafted specifically to destroy an Olympian. They rise from sacred places, from blood spilled on cursed soil, from whispers in forgotten languages. Porphyrion, her king, towers like a mountain, meant to challenge Zeus himself. Other giants target Poseidon, Hades, Athena. The gods need their demigod children to stand beside them, for only together can they win. But fighting a monster crafted by the earth itself is like trying to stab a mountain. These giants don't just wield power, they wield prophecy. Their existence is foretold. And in some cases, Percy and his friends must defeat them using not just swords, but teamwork, timing, and divine aid. Even then, victory leaves bruises. The giants shatter mountains. They scream storms into being. They tear down reality. And in their wake, the world is changed. Still, for every massive threat, there are the small horrors too. Monsters that don't look monstrous like the Telekines, sea dog blacksmiths with cruel grins. Or the Empusai who speak sweetly before turning deadly. These creatures blend in. They wait. They remind every demigod that the real fear isn't always in the roar. It's in the silence that comes before it. And then there are the nightmares made flesh, like the thousand-armed Hecaton Keres, imprisoned in darkness so long they've forgotten their name. Percy meets one Briare's broken, scared, more ghost than legend. Yet even he finds his strength again when it matters most. That's the strange part of monsters in this world. They're not always evil. Some are victims, cursed, twisted, lost. And some find redemption, but most hunger, most return. Most haunt the dreams of young heroes who lie awake, wondering what new terror tomorrow might bring. Monsters are more than beasts. They are the echoes of chaos, the forgotten fears of a world that once danced with gods. They are lessons, living puzzles, trials that test not just strength, but heart. And in the world of Percy Jackson, every victory comes with another shadow on the horizon, another claw beneath the bed, another roar behind the next door. But still, the demigods rise. They fight. They fall. They fight again. And somewhere in the dark, the monsters wait, watching, listening, preparing. Because the battle between gods and beasts never truly ends. It just sleeps, like a tide pulled back, ready to surge once more. Among the many shadows that wander the world of Percy Jackson, there is one that always slithers in just behind the hero, the whisper of the serpent, Typhon, the ancient guardian of the oracle at Delphi. Once, before even Apollo took claim of the site, Typhon was the spirit of prophecy, a monstrous snake born of Gaia herself. Its body stretched across caverns, coiled through time, radiating old wisdom and poisonous breath. In the myths, Apollo slayed Typhon and claimed the oracle for himself. In Percy Jackson's world, the serpent's defeat echoes through every prophecy that leaves Rachel Dare's lips. It's not always present, but it lingers, a reminder that monsters are not only beasts of claws and teeth, but beings tied to fate, to history, and to power. The being. From the ancient to the grotesque, one of the most memorable monsters Percy faces is the Chimera. With the body of a lion, the tail of a serpent, and the head of a goat jutting from its back, it embodies chaos, an impossible mix of nature's most threatening forms. When Percy fights the Chimera atop the St. Louis Arch, he's still learning what it means to be a demigod, still unsure of his own strength. The Chimera doesn't just test his swordsmanship, it forces him to face fear when he's at his weakest. The monster sends him flying into the Mississippi River, injured and gasping, and it's in that water that Percy first realizes the power of Poseidon's protection. The Chimera nearly killed him, but it also baptized him into the deeper magic of who he really is. Sometimes the monsters teach, sometimes they awaken. Then there's Echidna, the mother of monsters, not in the metaphorical sense, but literally. She is the matriarch who birthed many of the most terrifying creatures in Greek lore. In the books, she appears alongside the Chimera, calm and cruel, watching Percy struggle and bleed. She tells him plainly, the gods will never save him. She stands for an ancient truth that monsters are not glitches in the world, they are part of it. The Olympians create, but the monsters balance that creation with challenge, wrath, and instinct. Echidna exists to remind us that the heroic path is not clean. Every great tale must be sharpened on the edge of fear. And what greater fear than the Minotaur, Percy's very first major encounter. The bull-headed beast with a man's body and ferocious strength. It kills his mother, or so he believes. The Minotaur doesn't speak. It charges. It throws. It crushes. And Percy, in that moment of grief and fury, does what no one expects. He defeats it. with its own horn. It's not just a victory over a monster. It's a moment of transformation, from ordinary boy to demigod of war. And like so many monsters, the Minotaur doesn't stay dead forever. It returns again and again, a symbol that fear, grief, and challenge are never one-time battles. They circle back. They change form. They test us anew. The Furies, too, are unforgettable. They're not monstrous in size, but in presence. Cloaked in shadows, shrieking with ancient hatred, they represent divine vengeance. They are relentless. When Percy sees one disguised as a math teacher, he doesn't understand yet that the lines between the mortal and immortal world have already blurred. Alecto, the Fury in question, attacks with ferocity, driven by a wrath older than Olympus. Percy's fight with her isn't just physical, it's mental. It's the horror of being hunted by a world that only he can see, while everyone else stares blankly. And the truth of the Furies is that they never forget. You can strike them down, you can outrun them, but they wait, they remember. And if you've wronged the old laws, they will come again. Then come the lesser-known horrors, the Empusai vampiric creatures that appear sweet and seductive, only to reveal their monstrous forms when the veil drops. They reflect the fear of deception, of masks worn too well. They prey on trust. In the books, they often appear in schools where demigods try to blend in. The Empusai teach Percy and his friends that monsters don't just wait on battlefields. They hide in plain sight, behind smiles, behind beauty, and behind silence. Even the Lystragonians, the giant cannibals from the north, represent a different kind of terror. They're brutish, unsophisticated, but overwhelming in strength and numbers. When Percy faces them in a school gym, it's another reminder that nowhere is safe. The monsters do not wait for permission. They crash into your world. They flip your desk. They bring fire and teeth into ordinary mornings. That's what makes the life of a demigod so exhausting. There's no pause, no warning, no map. None. And in the sea, the Scylla and Charybdis, the twin terrors from Homer's Odyssey, reimagined for a new generation. One devours sailors with multiple snapping heads. The other swallows entire ships in a whirlpool maw. Percy must sail between them, a literal test of impossible choices. It's a metaphor made flesh. In some moments, you can't win. You can only survive. You can only endure. These sea monsters don't care about your heroism. They are forces of nature, shaped by ancient curses and immortal rage. Let us not forget Medusa, whose eyes turn mortals to stone, and whose story has always been one of tragedy, masked by horror. In Percy's world, Medusa owns a roadside shop, pretending to be human. She speaks with bitterness, recalling how Athena cursed her for being wronged. When Percy beheads her, it is necessary she attacks them first, but it also carries weight. Medusa's gaze is not just a weapon, it is a burden, a symbol of being seen, of being feared, and of never being able to rest. And then, deeper still, is the sea of monsters itself, the very ocean transformed into myth. There, Percy battles not just creatures, but doubt. He faces the Hydra, with its regenerating heads. He fights the Colchis bulls, fire-breathing mechanical beasts forged by Hephaestus. But most terrifying of all, he faces the fear that he's not enough, that his failures will cost his friends their lives. The monsters in these waters are not just physical threats, they are internal ones. Even Talos, the giant bronze automaton, poses a different kind of threat, not alive in the traditional sense, but deadly all the same. a machine built by the gods, misunderstood by mortals, and eventually faced by demigods who barely grasp the technology left behind. The old world doesn't always die. Sometimes it rusts. Sometimes it reawakens. And sometimes it stomps toward you with metal fists and glowing eyes. And beyond the individual beasts lie the Titans. Kronos himself once imprisoned, now stirring in the pit of Tartarus. He is not a monster in the traditional sense, but in Percy's world, the lines blur. He is the father of the gods, the consumer of his children, the time devourer. His return marks a shift in the mythic balance. The monsters begin to unite. They follow his call. And for the first time, the demigods realize these aren't just random threats anymore. They're part of a war, a plan, a prophecy fulfilled. The monsters in Percy Jackson are more than enemies. They are mirrors. They show fear, regret, rage, betrayal. They carry the scars of old myths, of wrongs left unhealed. And sometimes, just sometimes, they don't want to kill. They want to be remembered. They want to exist. Even the most terrifying among them was once part of a story, now trying to find its way back into the world. And just as the monsters grow stronger, so too does Percy. Because monsters don't just test your sword, they test your soul. And in the next part of our tale, we dive even deeper, into the dreamlike dark, into the pit beneath the pit, where not even the gods tread lightly. Tartarus, where monsters go when they die, and sometimes where they rise again. Deep beneath the waking world, far below the warmth of Olympus and the safety of Camp Half-Blood, there lies a place that breathes darkness. Tartarus. It is not simply a prison, not merely a pit, but a presence. A living, ancient force that remembers every step ever taken across its cursed floor. This is where monsters go when they die, but death here does not mean the end. It means rebirth. It means pain. It means waiting. In Tartarus, time coils and breaks. And the monsters who fall here, they don't rest. They plot. They crawl. They bleed shadows and whisper oaths that echo against the stony walls of eternity. Percy and Annabeth once fell into this place not by choice, but by fate. And what they found was more than horror. It was history. It was the truth of what the gods bury, the souls of beasts that never wanted to die. Creatures ancient and twisted and wronged, some with wings made of bone, some with eyes that never close, some with names that no longer belong to any language spoken in the world above. As Percy walked through that underworld of nightmares, he saw what the surface had forgotten. Monsters torn apart and still alive. Giants laughing without breath. The smell of sulfur, rot, and something older, the stench of memory. These were not new enemies. They were old ones, stitched back together by the will of Tartarus itself. And it wasn't just the monsters that had changed. It was the rules. In Tartarus, even the ground beneath you may hate you. Even the air may bite. Percy met Empusai again, met awry spirits of curses, haunting and seething, bound to the consequences of past violence. Each one a shadow of someone's broken promise. Each one a flicker of some ancient wrong. Percy had to face them, not just with his sword, but with understanding. Because in Tartarus, survival isn't just about fighting, it's about enduring the truth that the monsters you thought were gone never really left. The very floor of Tartarus had its own rhythm, a heartbeat that pulsed through rock and marrow. At times, it sounded like laughter. At others, like screaming. Here Percy saw Jaia's influence take root. Jaia, the Earth Mother, who birthed the giants and gave monsters permission to rise again. It was her breath that filled this world, her rage that stitched the creatures back together. She wanted balance, not peace. She wanted the gods to feel fear. And so she opened the doors of death. With Thanatos, the god of peaceful endings, chained and imprisoned, monsters could return endlessly. No final death, no rest, just repetition, over and over again. They rose, they attacked, they fell, and then returned once more. A cycle of violence wrapped in prophecy. Percy felt the weight of that loop, the fatigue of an unending war. And in that knowledge, he understood why so many heroes had disappeared, not from weakness, but from exhaustion. Even in Tartarus, there were allies, small lights in the dark. Bob the Titan, once Iapetus, now a forgotten soul who chose kindness. Damocin, the peaceful giant who healed instead of harmed. These beings stood in contrast to the tide of monsters. They were proof that not all born in shadow remain lost to it. But their presence also reminded Percy of something deeper, that monsters are not always monstrous by choice. That creation and cruelty are sometimes forced into the same skin. And that sometimes the ones cast aside by the gods are the ones who bleed for a better world. One of the most terrifying presences in Tartarus was not the giants or the furies or even Jaia's whispers. It was Nyx, the primordial goddess of night, older than the gods, older than the titans. She walked through Tartarus like a queen in her court, her children flanking her like living shadows. Moros, the spirit of doom, Hypnos, the lord of sleep, and Nemesis, the embodiment of revenge. Nyx did not roar or strike, she whispered, and even Percy, son of Poseidon, trembled beneath her voice. She reminded him that not all monsters scream. Some lull you into silence. Some cloak themselves in beauty and stars and the velvet promise of dreams. But their teeth are just as sharp. Their justice just as cruel. As Percy and Annabeth fought their way through this pit of nightmares, they discovered something strange. The deeper they went, the more the monsters changed. They were no longer the beasts of myths and mortal stories. These were raw fears, shapes without names, eyes that blinked in places where eyes should never be, limbs that bent in wrong directions, creatures that had never known sunlight and had no interest in rules. It was as if Tartarus had begun creating monsters of its own, not drawn from myths, but from madness. These beings didn't speak, didn't negotiate. They existed only to feed, to break, to tear apart the fabric of self. And that made them the most dangerous of all. But not all monsters wait in Tartarus. Some rise, some slip through cracks in the barrier between death and life. Like the giants resurrected by Jaia to challenge the Olympians. Each one crafted to counter a god directly. Enceladus, the bane of Athena. Porphyrion, towering rival of Zeus. Polybotes, the sea giant meant to crush Poseidon. These were not beasts that wandered blindly. They were built for war, for purpose, for vengeance. And they could not be killed by gods alone. Only by a god and a demigod fighting side by side. This was Jaia's final truth. That only cooperation between heaven and earth could stop the return of the monstrous. It was not just the battlefield that revealed monsters, but the memories. Percy remembered the faces of enemies long thought defeated. He remembered Draconi, the snake women soldiers. He remembered Telekines, dog-headed sea demons once banished by the gods for forging forbidden weapons. He remembered giants of ash and flame. Some monsters rose with fury, some with sorrow, but all of them all returned with a story left untold. In the quiet moments, Percy realized that each monster he faced had once been part of the world, now rejected, now rewritten into nightmares. And maybe that was the source of their wrath. In Tartarus, the monsters spoke of their own heroes, names that had been erased, battles never sung. In their version of the story, the gods were tyrants, the demigods, enforcers, and the monsters, survivors, victims of divine pride. Percy didn't know what to do with that, but he carried it, let it settle into the corners of his mind, because maybe, in another world, the stories were told differently. Maybe the villains were just the voices that lost. The climb out of Tartarus was brutal. Every step, a scream. Every ledge, a test. And yet Percy and Annabeth did it. Not because they were stronger, but because they had something the monsters did not love. Loyalty, memory, and hope. In that way, the monsters taught Percy something unexpected. That strength is not in teeth or claws or rage. It is in kindness, in bonds, in the quiet promise of light. Even here, in a pit made of despair, that promise guided him. And when he emerged again, blinking beneath the sky, the wind against his face, he didn't forget. He never would, because the monsters would rise again. They always did. But now Percy understood them, understood the pain, the cycle, the song beneath the roar. He understood that even monsters need someone to remember their names. And as the stars twinkle once more above Camp Half-Blood and the forge fire flickers low, you dream of them too, the ones who fall, the ones who rise, the ones who wait, and the ones who watch in silence until the next story begins. From the dark forests of ancient times to the halls of Olympus, the creatures of Greek mythology have always lurked just beyond the veil of what we call real. In Percy Jackson's world, these creatures are not only real, they're waiting. Section 5 takes us deeper into the stories of monsters that don't just chase heroes. They teach them. The Chimera with its triple threat form. The Laestrygonian giants who wield flaming cannonballs in the urban warfare. And the ancient sea beasts that rise when Poseidon's fury stirs. These are more than enemies. They're symbols, echoes, tests of strength and wisdom. They test loyalty too. Loyalty to one's friends. Loyalty to the mission. Percy's battles often reveal not only how strong he is, but how much he values the people he protects. When Percy and Annabeth faced the Hydra, the stakes were not just life and death. It was trust. Can I protect you? Can you trust me? The Hydra's many heads weren't just a physical challenge, but a metaphor for problems that keep coming back, no matter how many times you strike them down. Each one snapping and screeching, a reflection of inner chaos and external danger. And yet, the answer is always forward, always courage. Later, the party ponies arrive. Not monsters, but not quite safe either. They're wild, unpredictable, helpful in their own way. Like so many things in Percy's world, danger and aid often come dressed in the same skin. There are no easy rules. You can't judge by appearance. Even monsters sometimes are misunderstood. Like Typhon, Percy's Cyclops brother. He's gentle, loyal, strong. But to the rest of the world, he's just another monster. In this section of the journey, we begin to see the cracks in these old labels. Who gets to decide what's monstrous? The Laestrygonians, by contrast, are not misunderstood. They are brutal, cruel, and born for destruction. Their presence in the modern world is jarring. Flaming cannonballs hurled across a school gym. Children hunted like prey. The blend of ancient terror and modern-day normalcy makes the danger feel closer, more real. These are not stories locked in dusty tomes. In Percy's life, they are alarm bells in a lunchroom, fire trails in the hallway, and enemies hiding behind school doors. Myth lives here, in the moment, in the everyday. Then comes the Dracinae, snake women warriors, half human, half serpent. They slither through the battlefield like nightmares come to life. They whisper in ancient tongues. Their blades sing with venom. And Percy must fight, not because he wants to, but because if he doesn't, others will fall. And yet, even in battle, there is a quiet grace, the way he learns their patterns, the way Annabeth calculates their movements, a dance of survival, a rhythm of myth and memory, spinning through each encounter like a dream too vivid to forget. Deeper still, there are the monsters that never quite die, like Kampa, a jailer of ancient beasts with hundreds of legs, snake tails, and the wings of a bat. She exists like a stitched-together nightmare, an amalgam of fear, a walking reminder that the worst monsters are often the ones built from many others. Campe holds back Briareus, the hundred-handed one, and it's Briareus, not Percy, who must find the courage to escape. Not all battles are fought with swords. Some are fought in cages. Some are won with belief in others. Throughout this section, we begin to understand that monsters in Percy's world are not static. They're fluid. They evolve. Some are born again from Tartarus. Some change shape. Some exist more in the mind than in the flesh. The worst of them, like the Empusai, the vampiric spirits of Hecate, wear human faces. They beguile. They seduce. And when they strike, it is not with a roar, but with a whisper. In a world where deception is a weapon, even dreams are not always safe. Yet there is beauty too. The hippocampi, seahorses the size of whales, gentle, playful, massive. They swim through the underwater currents like guardians of a forgotten realm. When Percy rides one, it's not just escape, it's freedom. A moment of weightlessness, a soft lull in the chaos. These are the breathers between battles. The monsters that don't hunt, but carry, comfort, guide. And in that contrast, we see what makes Percy's world so rich. It is not just war. It is wonder. As the pages turn, the monsters grow stranger. Echidna, the mother of the monsters, emerges in fire and smoke. She speaks of legacies, of children destined to devour. And yet, even she feels like a character out of balance. Proud, yes, but also burdened, carrying the stories of 1,000 fallen beasts. And standing beside her, the Chimera, lion's head, goat's body, serpent tail. A fusion, a paradox, beauty in design, horror in action. It breathes fire, and Percy must leap into the unknown to survive it. Sometimes, Percy doesn't win. Sometimes, he just endures. He survives the experience and learns from it. These monsters don't just test his body, they test his values, his patience, his ability to forgive. Even when the gods send creatures to test him, creatures like the Nemean lion with its impenetrable golden fur, he finds not just a way to fight, but a way to understand. Each monster has a weakness. Each myth has a key. If you listen, if you remember. And sometimes the monsters are not in front of you. Sometimes they're beneath your feet, like the giant Antaeus, son of Gaia, who grows stronger the more he touches the earth. Percy defeats him by lifting him off the ground, away from his source of strength. In that moment, we learn, even the unstoppable can fall if you understand what they draw power from. A monster's strength is never random. It is rooted in pain, in pride, in place. As Section 5 continues, we pass through Percy's encounters with the Telkins, dog-faced smiths of the sea, crafty, cruel, and strangely comedic. They forge weapons with ancient magic, but in the end, even their cleverness can't match heart. Heroism is not just about strength, it's about sacrifice. It's about standing up when you're afraid, even when monsters laugh in your face. And then, the most terrifying monsters of all, the ones that crawl out of Tartarus itself, the pit at the bottom of everything, the place where nightmares are born. It's not just a prison, it's a presence, a place with a will of its own. The monsters here don't just escape, they rise, they evolve. And when Percy glimpses them, he knows they are not done, not by a long shot. The final monster he sees before falling is not the strongest. It is the one who remembers him. They don't forget. They wait. Through it all, Percy isn't just a hero. He's a lens. Through him, we witness monsters not as plot devices, but as metaphors. They are fears, doubts, challenges. And as he fights, we rest. We drift. We close our eyes and walk beside him through the smoke and the shadows. Because in this story, even monsters can't stop the dream. There are places in the world of Percy Jackson that tremble beneath the surface of myth, places where the veil between our world and something much older grows thin. Mount Tamalpais, the depths of the labyrinth, the forest of monsters. These are not just landscapes, but living thresholds. And as Percy ventures deeper into them, the creatures he encounters shift too. No longer just beasts that roar and chase, they are things that guard ancient secrets, test unseen fears, and remind him of what he's becoming. A demigod growing older, wiser, but never invincible. At the heart of these shadowy places lie monsters born not just of flesh and fury, but of stories long buried. Take Siren, for example, an ancient bandit from the days of Theseus, reborn on the rocky cliffs of the labyrinth. He doesn't roar or stampede. He simply waits by the edge of a narrow path, asking travelers to wash his feet before kicking them off a cliff to be devoured by his monstrous turtle. It is a horror made quiet, patient, one that tests, not swordplay, but trust. Siren's presence lingers because he represents something uncomfortable. The betrayal of hospitality, the cruelty hidden behind manners. In Dote. And then there's Geryon, 3 torsos, 1 ranch, and a smile full of lies. He offers a job, a deal, a moment of rest. But in the world of monsters, such moments come with sharp strings attached. His stables are built on the pain of mythical creatures and the cost of freedom, even for the gentle, flesh-eating horses, is always higher than it seems. When Percy faces Geryon, he must do more than fight, he must decide. Do you take the shot? Do you risk it all? Do you trust yourself to aim true? Meanwhile, the labyrinth breathes. It shifts, and inside it, monsters multiply. Not just Draceni and Campe's remnants, but the terrifying Telkines against sea demons with canine heads and sorcery in their claws. They whisper incantations in ancient Greek, forge dark weapons, and laugh with cruel delight. In this world, even monsters have civilizations, roles, and grudges. They are not all wild. Some are organized, strategic, waiting in the dark, like memories too bitter to be forgotten. Yet it is Daedalus's labyrinth that becomes the real monster. It warps reality. Time bends. Direction dies. And Percy must navigate it not just with feet, but with heart. Along the way, he learns the truth about monsters like Calypso's old suitor's men who once chased Odysseus's bloodline and now wait as shades in dead-end halls. Their bodies may be gone, but their bitterness remains. In Percy's world, monsters don't always attack from the outside. Sometimes they wait inside the walls, like guilt, regret, or fear, and test who you really are when no one's watching. Some of the most haunting creatures he meets are the ones who don't attack at all. Like the Empuzai in disguise, women with fiery hair, bronze claws, and eyes that gleam with hunger and sorrow. They pretend to be mortal, kind, vulnerable. They ask questions. They linger at campfires. And just when you think you're safe, they strike. But Percy isn't just a child anymore. He learns to listen, to observe, to trust the instincts that have saved him time and time again. The monsters may be clever, but so is he. Elsewhere, in the forest beyond Camp Half-Blood, lurk ancient beasts forgotten by time. One of them, the manticore, walks with arrogance, part lion, part scorpion, part man. It speaks like a scholar and kills like a god. It wants chaos. It wants blood. But most of all, it wants children to know that safety is never guaranteed. When it attacks during a school trip, Percy learns that monsters don't wait for declarations of war. They come to classrooms, to buses, to the edges of picnics. Myth walks beside reality at all times. The more he journeys, the more Percy sees that not all monsters are ancient. Some are reborn from modern fears. Automatons built by Daedalus, mechanical beasts that obey logic instead of instinct. They crunch numbers. They calculate outcomes. And still, they kill. Percy's battles are no longer just about strength or speed. They become battles of mind, of problem solving, of courage under pressure. When faced with a bronze dragon whose gears hiss with the screams of long-forgotten wars, Percy doesn't run. He reasons. He remembers. And in that memory, he finds the key. Some creatures are not meant to be fought. Some are meant to be freed. Like Briareus, the 100-handed one. Once a terrifying being, now a prisoner of fear. His many hands tremble. His power lies dormant. Percy must do more than rescue, he must believe. He must offer faith to someone who has long forgotten how to hold it. This is the theme that begins to echo in Section 6. Not all monsters are enemies. Some are mirrors. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is show mercy. Even in moments of stillness, the threat lingers. The Stymphalian birds, metal-feathered and razor-beaked, descend like living blades. The Furies whisper from the skies. Old enemies are never truly gone. They regenerate, reappear, relearn. In Percy's world, peace is a pause, never a promise. And still, he walks forward. Still, he learns. He becomes a map of scars and stories. When he meets Antaeus in a gladiator pit, a giant who draws strength from the earth itself, Percy learns that winning isn't always about overpowering. It's about adaptation, strategy. Antaeus cannot be beaten on the ground, so Percy lifts him, separates him from his strength. And the lesson is clear. Monsters have weaknesses, even the loudest ones, even the biggest. Some of the most fascinating monsters are those that blur lines. The Ophiuchus, a gentle sea creature, half cow, half serpent, carries within it the power to destroy Olympus. And yet, it is kind, soft, trusting. When Percy meets it, he doesn't see a threat. He sees a friend. And in that choice, a new truth emerges. Sometimes the gods themselves are wrong. Sometimes they fear what they don't understand. Sometimes they label monsters out of fear, not fact. And then, there's the moment where Percy faces his own reflection. Not in a mirror, but in monsters who were once heroes. Like Theseus, who slew beasts but left trails of heartbreak, or Heracles, whose strength came at great cost. Percy begins to wonder, what makes a monster? Is it the shape, the power, or is it the choices, the pride, the lack of love? This question deepens when he enters the Sea of Monsters, a place of illusions and trials. There, he meets monsters who don't want to fight. Some are just hungry. Some are just lost. Charybdis, the whirlpool, and Scylla, the cliff-dwelling devourer, both ancient and eternal, don't attack Percy out of cruelty. They attack because that's what they were made for. And in that realization, Percy grieves. Not for his own safety, but for the brokenness of a world where creatures are born only to destroy. Through it all, Percy keeps going. He grows quieter, more thoughtful. He no longer sees monsters as roadblocks. He sees them as stories, some tragic, some terrifying, all unforgettable. And in the quiet moments, when the wind is soft and the stars are bright, he begins to wonder, what happens when the monsters are gone? What are we left with? Who are we without something to fight? The answer is peace. And maybe that's the hardest thing of all. So tonight, as your body settles into stillness, and the memories of these monsters float around your thoughts like drifting mist, remember this. Monsters are not just things we fear. They are things we face. They are the shapes our doubts take, the names our trials wear. And when we face them with courage, kindness, and understanding, we become more than heroes. We become whole. Let the labyrinth fade. Let the wind hush. Let the monsters rest in story. And sleep, little dreamer. For in your dreams, even the fiercest beast can be tamed. Somewhere beneath the surface of the waking world lies a place even demigods fear to tread. It is not marked on mortal maps, and no compass can guide you there. It is the realm beneath realms, a place of stillness and silence, of judgment and shadow. It is the underworld, and within its sprawling, cavernous depths dwell the most ancient, sorrowful monsters of them all. As Percy Jackson draws nearer to the land of the dead, even the bravest part of him begins to hesitate, not because of what he must fight, but because of what he must remember. The underworld is more than a battlefield. It's a graveyard of broken promises, of forgotten names, and of monsters born from grief. The first creature to test Percy in this realm is the three-headed guardian of the gates, Cerberus. Massive, black-furred, and growling with centuries of rage, Cerberus is not just a beast of violence. He is a creature of loyalty, of duty. He does not chase, but waits, does not speak, but watches. His head snarl in unison, and his paws could flatten a chariot. But when Annabeth once offered him a red rubber ball, he hesitated, just for a moment. A child's game, a memory, a sliver of gentleness buried deep inside a monster made for guarding death. Beyond Cerberus lies the river Styx. Its waters whisper with the voices of the dead. Its currents carry regrets, promises, and broken oaths. And in these waters lurk monsters of memory, souls who refuse to forget. Some become shades. Others, like the Lernaean Hydra, rise again with each head reborn in anguish, a creature too stubborn to die fully. In the underworld, death is not an end. It is a cycle, and monsters that fall above often find new shape below. As Percy ventures deeper, he learns of the Erinyes, the Furies. They are not merely monsters. They are enforcers of ancient laws, sisters of vengeance. Their eyes burn with sorrow. Their wings spread like night itself. And when they scream, it is not rage you hear, it is mourning. The Furies do not pursue out of hatred. They pursue out of duty, out of grief for a world where wrongs must be punished and pain must be preserved. The deeper levels of the underworld hide creatures that even the gods avoid naming, like Kampa, a jailer of Tartarus. With the body of a woman, wings of a bat, and serpents for legs, she is a nightmare born from the earliest myths. Her armor is fused into her skin, her eyes never blink, and her scream can shatter stone. When Percy hears whispers of her in Daedalus's labyrinth, he doesn't just feel fear, he feels age, as though the myth itself is remembering a scar too deep to heal. There is also the Chimera, lion, goat, serpent, who guards not a place, but a truth. That chaos itself is alive, that no matter how well you prepare, some monsters are contradictions given form. They breathe fire and poison in the same breath. And Percy realizes, while fighting creatures like this, that survival isn't always about strength. It's about letting go of logic, about trusting instinct, feeling the rhythm of myth pulsing through his bones. The fields of punishment echo with the howls of former kings and failed titans. There, Percy learns of monsters who were once mortal, bandits, tyrants, deceivers, now twisted into eternal torment. Some, like Tantalus, are not monsters in shape, but in heart. Doomed to hunger forever, he reaches for fruit that pulls away, drinks from a stream that recedes. He is the monster of want, a mirror of all those who take too much and never learn when to stop. Even the titans, buried beneath Tartarus, hum with monstrous presence. Kronos himself is not a beast of fang and claw, but a god warped by greed. When Percy glimpses him, fragmented, rebuilding, haunting Luke's form, he sees not just a villain, but a father who devoured his own children. A shadow of time twisted into hate. And Percy must ask, if time can become a monster, what else can? And yet, even here, not all monsters are cruel. Some are tired, like the spirits of the underworld beasts who were once feared, but now simply wait. The Nemean lion, skin still impenetrable, but eyes that no longer burn. Or the ghost of the Caledonian boar, roaming fields of ash with thudding, mournful steps. Percy begins to understand. Monsters die too, and when they do, they leave behind echoes, warnings, lessons. He meets a woman with snake hair, Medusa's spirit. She speaks not with hatred, but weariness. Her beauty was once her curse, her gaze once her only defense. Percy begins to ask himself, who made her a monster? Was it Athena? Was it men who sought to claim her? The line between villain and victim grows ever more blurred. By the time Percy nears the pit of Tartarus, even the air feels heavier. The monsters here are not named, not drawn, not spoken of. They are feelings, hatred given voice, fear given form. They are the things heroes leave behind. And as Percy backs away, he carries one thought. Monsters are not born down here. They fall. From grace, from stories, from choices. And yet, through all the darkness, Percy remains steady. Because he knows that every monster faced is a part of the path. That even in the underworld, hope flickers. And that dreams, gentle, soft dreams, can be born from even the darkest myths. So sleep now, traveler of tales. Let the monsters rest. Let the shadows soften, for you walk with heroes, and your dreams are safe. Beneath the veil of moonlight, as camp, Half-Blood slumbers and the stars drift quietly across the sky, a darker kind of whisper creeps in from the edges of the forest. It is not unkind. It is not loud. But it is old. It rustles through pine needles and swims beneath the surface of the lake. It slinks through the cracks of stone temples and sleeps coiled around stories not yet told. Tonight, we follow those whispers into the shadows of Greek legend that Percy Jackson once stood against. For not every monster has claws and fangs. Some wear charm, like a mask. Others wait patiently in ancient caves, blinking slowly through centuries of slumber until their names are called once more. This is their chapter, the forgotten beasts, the ones lurking behind the better-known monsters, the ones whose myths echo not just through battle, but through caution, through warning, through dreams. Let's begin with the Empusai. Tall, pale, fiery-haired, one leg made of bronze, the other nothing but the shadow of a donkey's leg. They serve the goddess Hecate, the mistress of magic and crossroads, and they are creatures of manipulation. When Percy first encounters one in the Battle of the Labyrinth, she pretends to be a cheerleader at Good High School. Her eyes glow with malice, her teeth sharpen with each sentence, and when her disguise peels away, the true horror is revealed. The Empusai aren't mindless killers. They feed on emotions, on fear, lust, chaos. They are the kind of monsters who speak sweetly, right before they tear you apart. In Greek myth, they were often sent to distract or torment men, especially those wandering at night. Perhaps that's why their footsteps still echo down empty hallways in modern schools. Or perhaps they never left at all. Now follow the trail deeper, toward the howling peaks of Thessaly, where wind whips over crags and vultures circle slowly. Here lies the home of another feared predator, the manticore. A lion's body, a scorpion's tail, a human face twisted in rage. In Percy Jackson's world, the manticore is more than a myth. It takes human form, that of Dr. Thorne, a vice principal with eyes that see too much. He is strict, cruel, and beneath his blazer, the heart of a killer. When he reveals his true form and attacks Percy and his friends, the venom in his tail isn't just physical, it's a symbol of lies dressed as authority, of predators wearing polite smiles. In the original Persian myth, the manticore's voice was said to be musical, even hypnotic, to lure its prey close. And in the books, Dr. Thorne uses charm, manipulation, and authority to achieve the same effect before striking. Let us now descend into water. Cool, silent, deep. Here sleeps Scylla. Chowden. In ancient legend, she was once a beautiful nymph cursed by jealousy, transformed into a horror with 6 dog-like heads and tentacles that writhe from her waist. In Percy's journey across the sea of monsters, she emerges again, attacking ships without warning. Her necks lash out from the cliffs. Her mouths snap for flesh. In classical mythology, sailors feared passing between Scylla and her counterpart, Charybdis, a whirlpool that swallows entire fleets. Percy and Annabeth sail that same cursed strait, navigating a path between 2 impossible evils. And in doing so, they echo the dilemma faced by Odysseus himself. Which monster do you face? Which disaster do you embrace, if survival lies only through danger? Some monsters live in stone, literal stone, like the Sphinx. In most tales, the Sphinx asks riddles. Fail to answer, and you die. But in Percy Jackson's world, the riddle game is no longer clever, it's bureaucratic. Multiple choice, standardized, mocking the intelligence it once prized. Percy realizes the trap, that this monster has traded wisdom for control. It doesn't want thinking heroes. It wants obedient victims. So he rejects the test and fights instead. In doing so, he restores what the Sphinx lost. The spirit of questioning, of resisting false logic, of thinking beyond boxes. And what of Echidna, the mother of monsters? She doesn't roar or stomp. She doesn't hide. She simply waits and watches. When Percy first meets her atop the gateway arch, she poses as a harmless old woman with a chihuahua. That tiny dog, Chimera, fire-breathing lion, snake for a tail, goat emerging from its back, and Percy is forced to jump into the Mississippi to survive. Echidna represents a terrifying truth. Monsters are born of monsters. She is the root, the source, the mother of nightmares. And she's proud of it. She tells Percy he is not worthy of his father's protection, that demigods are weak, and that her children will always return. And in truth, she's not entirely wrong. Because in the world of gods and demigods, monsters don't truly die. They reform in Tartarus, and that is where our path now leads. Imagine it. A pit without light, a landscape of suffering, where monsters crawl back together piece by piece until they are reborn. This is where Percy and Annabeth fall, together in the Mark of Athena. And this is where they meet some of the oldest and most horrifying beings in existence. Like the awry spirits of curses. Each time Percy kills a monster in Tartarus, an aura appears, inflicting upon him the curse that monster cast in death. Pain, sorrow, rage. They don't fight with teeth or claws, they weaponize guilt, doubt, memory. And perhaps that is the scariest monster of all. Further in, we find Kelly again. The Impulsa returned, vengeful and taunting. She walks through Tartarus like a queen, no longer hiding behind cheerleader smiles. Her eyes glow brighter here, because in the realm of monsters, she doesn't need to pretend. And towering above them all, the giants, created to challenge the Olympians, born from the blood of Uranus and the earth of Gaia, each one built to kill a specific god. In the final battle, Percy and the other demigods must fight side by side with their godly parents to defeat them. Because giants cannot be slain by God or demigod alone, it must be both. A union of worlds. A reminder that monsters thrive in division, but falter when unity rises. But not all monsters are born of earth and rage. Some are born of mirrors, of sorrow, of rejection, like Medusa. Her snakes hiss softly in the garden, where statues of her victims pose forever in frozen fear. She was once a maiden, cursed not for her crimes, but for being violated in Athena's temple. Her punishment? To become feared, hated, hunted. Percy slays her in The Lightning Thief, but not without recognizing the sadness in her gaze. In this retelling, Medusa isn't just a villain, she's a victim of myth, a symbol of how even monsters carry stories deeper than fear. And isn't that the truth? That monsters, like heroes, are complex. They teach us about power, about pride, about punishment. Some are metaphors, others are lessons, and a few might even be misunderstood. But all of them are part of the dream, part of the whisper, part of the world Percy walked through. And you now drift through too. As we drift into the final chapters of our journey, the monsters don't vanish, they evolve. Some wear new faces, some return older and angrier, and some never truly leave at all. But even now, as your breath softens and your eyes begin to grow heavy, remember this. In Greek myth, monsters were not just enemies, they were teachers. And the greatest lesson is that courage is often found in facing the things we fear most. And in that way, maybe we all have a bit of demigod in us. Even in dreams. Great. Let's continue section 8 with the next 1,500 words in soft, paragraph-style narration. Here's the continuation of Monsters of Greek Myth in Percy Jackson to Fall Asleep To, Section 8, Part 2. Yet even in the quiet glades of Camp Half-Blood, whispers of monsters old and forgotten still drift on the wind. The shadows cast by ancient trees are never truly empty. For every myth once told leaves behind a trace. One such myth is that of the Lamia, a mother once driven mad with grief, twisted by a god's cruelty. She was said to devour children in the night, her hunger born from the loss of her own. In the world of Percy Jackson, Lamia isn't merely a bedtime tale. She's real, venomous, and bitter toward all demigods. Her hatred is tangible, and her magic corrupts even the dreams of young heroes. There's something deeply haunting about her, a reminder that pain, if left untouched, can become monstrous. Some monsters, however, wear beauty like a mask. Impulsi, vampiric servants of Hecate, move with elegance and charm. They sway with the confidence of dancers, one leg of bronze, the other mist. To the untrained eye, they could be mistaken for enchantresses. But behind the glamour lies a predator's hunger. In the series, they don't simply thirst for blood. They revel in manipulation. They embody the kind of fear that doesn't strike with fangs, but with temptation. And Percy learns quickly that not all monsters roar. Some whisper sweetly until it's far too late. Then there's the Draceni, serpent women warriors with the torsos of humans and the bodies of snakes. Armed with deadly blades and ruthless loyalty to ancient evils, they aren't driven by chaos like many monsters. They're organized, disciplined, and relentless. In the Battle of the Labyrinth, they appear as foot soldiers under Kronos' rising army. Cold, calculating, and cruel, they represent a shift in the tides. A signal that the old monsters are no longer hiding. They're preparing. And as the stakes rise, Percy finds himself facing enemies that fight not with brute strength alone, but with strategy. But not all creatures are enemies from the start. Consider Mrs. O'Leary, the massive hellhound, with eyes like lava and a bark that could shake mountains. Born from the underworld, a beast of terror, and yet fiercely loyal. She becomes Percy's companion, not his foe. She reminds us that even the darkest origin doesn't define the heart within. In Greek mythology, hellhounds guard the gates of Hades. But in this retelling, one of them guards a hero. It's a lesson woven softly through the story. Not every monster is monstrous. Some simply need love. And then, there's the Chimera. Introduced in The Lightning Thief, this beast is terror made flesh. Lion's body, goat's head rising from its back, and a serpent for a tail. When Percy meets it, he's still unsure of his place in the world, still trembling under the weight of who he's supposed to be. The Chimera, unleashed inside the St. Louis Arch, is a trial by fire. Quite literally, because it breathes flame, bites with poison, and strikes with overwhelming force. It's not just a monster, it's Percy's first true brush with death. And from that moment on, nothing is ever the same. The world of Percy Jackson doesn't treat monsters as background noise. Each one has a purpose, a history, a legacy. Take the Colchis bulls, bronze mechanical beasts that breathe fire and never tire. Forged by Hephaestus, they represent the blending of myth and invention. Percy's battles with them are not just fights. They're dances of timing, wit, and raw courage. And every scorch mark left behind is a scar of growth. Each encounter shapes him, sharpens him, sculpts the demigod he's meant to become. Even the Maenads make an appearance, servants of Dionysus, driven to madness by divine frenzy. In the books, they aren't gentle or kind. They're chaotic, terrifying in their unpredictability. Their laughter echoes like breaking glass. Their rituals blur the line between ecstasy and horror. and they serve as a reminder that even joy, in its most extreme form, can be a kind of destruction. It's a balance that Rick Riordan masterfully preserves between the awe of mythology and the danger it brings. Every monster is a thread from an ancient tapestry, rewoven into the modern world with care and intention. And Percy? He is the needle that ties those threads together. Through him, we don't just meet the monsters. We feel them, we fear them, and we learn from them. Perhaps the most terrifying of all are the telekines, dog-headed sea demons, once blacksmiths of the gods. Banished for their arrogance, they now dwell in dark, forgotten places, crafting weapons of incredible power. They are not loud, not boisterous. They are silent craftsmen of destruction. And when Percy encounters them, he learns that danger can hide not only in wild beasts, but in cold creation. A sword is not evil, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a prophecy of pain. And so, the stories go on. From the Lystragonians, massive cannibal giants with a hunger for demigods, to the Hydra, whose heads multiply with every slash, the monsters Percy faces are not just obstacles. They are metaphors. Each one reflects a fear, a challenge, a truth. And in surviving them, Percy doesn't just grow stronger, he grows wiser. Because monsters are more than claws and teeth. They are grief. They are rage. They are loneliness twisted over centuries. And yet, they can be defeated. By kindness, by courage, by a boy with a heart too big to give up. But sometimes, the scariest monsters don't chase you in the forest or roar beneath the earth. Sometimes, they whisper in your own heart. That's the lesson Percy learns again and again. In the still moments between battles, in the quiet dreams after a fight, he realizes monsters aren't always beasts. They can be doubts. They can be anger. They can be guilt. Like when Luke, a friend once trusted, becomes the vessel for Kronos. Luke was no beast from the pit, but his betrayal stung deeper than any venom. In the Greek myths, many monsters were once human, cursed, twisted, forgotten. And in Percy's world, that sadness lingers in the shadows of every confrontation. Each monster he faces becomes a mirror. What would happen if he gave in? If he let the pain win? Even Typhon, the father of all monsters, massive, mountain-sized, an apocalypse made flesh, serves a purpose beyond destruction. As the gods battle him across the continent, Percy and his friends are left to hold the line. It's a lesson not just in power, but in responsibility. Because sometimes, monsters show up to remind us of what must be protected, what is truly at stake. They force heroes to act, to choose, to stand tall when everything trembles beneath them. And the truth is, monsters are necessary. Not because we love the fight, but because without the dark, we'd never know how brightly the light could shine. Some monsters are ancient, some are newly reborn, some are made of shadow, others of sorrow, and yet each one makes the world of Percy Jackson richer, deeper, more alive. They're not background, they're part of the heartbeat. And when Percy dreams, when the moonlight touches the waves, he doesn't only remember the victories, he remembers their eyes, their voices, the weight of choosing mercy or strength. And through it all, something magical happens. You stop fearing the monsters, not because they're less scary, but because you begin to understand them. You begin to feel for them. Even the Minotaur, once just a hulking brute, becomes a memory of Percy's first battle, of his mother's love, of the beginning of everything. And maybe that's the most powerful thing monsters can give us. Not fear, but transformation. Because every time Percy faces a monster, he changes, he grows, and so do we. We learn that bravery isn't about having no fear. It's about standing tall despite it. We learn that darkness can be fought back, not always with swords, but sometimes with hope. And we learn that the stories we tell about monsters aren't just tales to scare children. They're maps, they're mirrors, they're lullabies made from fire and shadow. So, as your eyes begin to close and your breath deepens, remember the monsters, not with terror, but with wonder. For in the world of Percy Jackson, even the darkest creatures serve the light in the end. And somewhere, deep in the woods near Camp Half-Blood, another creature stirs. Not to harm, but to be seen, to be remembered, to be part of the tale. Sleep now, little dreamer. Let the monsters rest too, for even they are part of the story. And the story, it's safe in your heart. The monsters have faded now. The roars are distant. The shadows have settled. And the pages of this ancient tale are finally closing. You've wandered through the darkest myths and deepest legends. You've met creatures born from chaos, from fear, from the cracks between dreams and reality. But now, as the world softens into quiet, you are safe. You are warm. You are not alone. Camp Half-Blood lies still under the stars. The cabins, once glowing with stories and battle scars, now rest beneath silver moonlight. The fields are empty, the arena silent, the stables calm not because they are forgotten, but because every monster has been faced, every fear has been named, and now peace is here. Somewhere by the forest edge, a satyr strums a gentle tune. His fingers pluck the notes of old lullaby songs that once calmed nymphs, that once soothed centaurs after a war. The melody dances between pine needles and fireflies, curling like mist around your thoughts. You don't have to chase it. Just listen. Let the music hold you. You've walked beside Percy through storm and salt, faced Echidna atop tall buildings, escaped the labyrinth with breathing barely steady, whispered past Empusai, and stood your ground before Jersina. You've watched giants fall, watched shadows shift, and still you stood. But even heroes must sleep, and even monsters cannot follow where dreams begin. In the attic of the big house, the oracle sleeps now. Her ancient breath is slow, the green mist within her quiet, like a bottle of lightning sealed beneath calm water. Even she knows, tonight, no prophecy needs to be spoken. Tonight is for silence, for softness, for sleep. The moon above is full and gentle, casting reflections on Poseidon's cabin roof, where ocean waves hum a lullaby. You hear it, don't you? That low sound like a mother's hum, or the echo of a conch shell held close to your ear. That's the sea, and it remembers you. Even the monsters you faced remember, not in anger, not in pain, but in awe. Because few ever walk through fear and keep their kindness. Few ever look into the eyes of nightmare and say, I understand, but you did. You, dreamer of myths. You, listener of legends. You didn't just hear about the monsters. You walked among them. You saw how even they were born, not just to terrify, but to teach. That chaos has a name. That fear can be faced. That even the oldest nightmares sleep eventually. And so should you. Somewhere in the strawberry fields, Demeter's children have fallen asleep among the vines. The ground hums with the magic of life, slow and peaceful. Nothing grows too fast tonight. Nothing rushes. Even the fireflies move in slow spirals, like stars with nowhere urgent to be. The hearth at the center of camp still burns small, steady. Hestia never leaves it, and she never leaves you. Her flame is quiet, but eternal, and it's in your chest now, too, the last spark of the tale, resting beneath your ribs, glowing with the warmth of every myth you've carried tonight. You've learned about Typhon, the storm father of monsters, but now the wind is soft. You've remembered Medusa, but now all stone has turned to moss. You've heard the growl of Cerberus, but now even he snores in his sleep. Even Tartarus seems far away now. That pit of endless falling, it cannot reach you here. You are not falling. You are floating, held by stories, wrapped in memory, guided by starlight. You are not a demigod tonight. You are not a warrior. You are not a child chased by fangs in the dark. You are something rarer. You are someone who listened. You held the weight of every creature the gods feared, and still, you stayed. And now the final scene unfolds, not in battle, not in prophecy, but in peace. The meadow near Thalia's pine is lit by moonlight. The tree stands tall, its golden fleece resting like a banner of safety. And just beneath it, a sleeping figure, a half-blood, wrapped in a soft blanket. Their breathing slow, their dreams deep. Maybe it's you. Yes, it is. And the gods? They watch from afar, not with challenge, not with trials, but with a quiet nod, because you have journeyed far enough. Tonight, Olympus rests. Tonight, no monsters rise, no quests begin, no shadows chase, only calm, only dreams. The stars shimmer overhead, ancient and knowing. They've seen it all before. Titans rise, monsters crawl, heroes stumble and rise again. But what they treasure most is when a tale ends well, when a hero is allowed to sleep. So close your eyes now. Let the wind pass through your thoughts like pages of an old book being closed. Let the voices of old monsters grow faint like echoes fading behind you. Let the warmth of Camp Half-Blood settle around you like a blanket woven from every story you've ever loved. You are not alone. You are remembered. You are part of the myth now, and you have earned your rest. The monsters will wait. The stories will keep. But for now, just sleep. Sleep, little dreamer. The gods are watching. The world is quiet. And you are home.